about this. It's a big story. Listen, Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac guaranteeing about 60% of the debt in the U.S. housing market. They make people able to get a mortgage, plain and simple. It's a hot topic issue for both lawmakers and investors. And joining us now is New Jersey's three-term Republican Congressman Scott Garrett. He is also a member of the House Financial Services Committee, also with some answers to what the management shakeup might mean. David Widener, Market Watch. David, Scott, thank you both very much for joining us. All right, Representative Garrett, let's talk. I mean, you know, the SIVs, Peter was talking. Now, it's one organization saying a super SIV. For people out there, they say, what's an SIV? It's not a big truck, okay? It's an SIV, structured investment vehicle. These died a painful death on Wall Street last year. They were universally panned for what they did. Now you got people suggesting maybe a SIV is the right way to solve Fannie and Freddie. I don't see it. What's your view? And
I don't necessarily see it off first blush either, nor do I see what just came down yesterday as far as with Fannie just restructuring what's going on over there. I really think you have to get a larger global picture of what's happening here and to take a look at the situation and say, look, wasn't about 2 or 3 weeks ago, the head of the CEO over at Freddie Mac said that basically these structures are in an impossible situation. They have two roles. One is being fiduciary responsibility to the investors on the one hand, and government gives them the other role, responsibility of liquidity in the housing market and trying to have the housing market grow in the country. He said that was an impossible position for the GSEs to have. So maybe we have to step back and say, we can't go on with this way. And you can restructure all you want. It's a cliche. But all we're really doing is saying, changing the deck chairs on the Titanic, and not even looking at the captain.
It seems to me, Dave, that we are, you know, and who knows, I mean, this is just a proposal, right? So we don't know where it's going to go. Right. It seems to me everything that we've heard about literally is just shuffling the debt around. Let's just move the risk around. Nobody is solving the actual problem, which is causing the debt and value destruction.
Exactly. I think the lesson we learned last year was that you want the debt on the balance sheet where you can see it and where it's disclosed and everything's in-house. You don't want to start moving things off the balance sheet because then you start getting into, you know, what are they hiding here? What's the real exposure? When the reality is that Fannie and Freddie are going to retain exposure on this. So why move it off the balance sheet? I mean, keep all the debt in one spot where everybody can see it.
All right, Scott, unfortunately you're here, so I'm going to use you as a proxy for Congress. So you have to take a little bit of a heat, a bit of a lump here.
Just remember my position on this.
Okay, well, that's fair and fine, but what you've got are now, you know, Barack Obama the other day was talking about he didn't care if investors got wiped. Forgetting that a lot of the Fannie and Freddie investors are actually pension funds and retirees who've now been hit because of this. Okay, so everybody's bashing Fannie and Freddie and trying to figure out what happened. Okay, where was Congress when these companies were just growing and growing? No one said a word when the housing market and the bubble was inflating, and now suddenly Congress is interested in finding out all the answers to the bubble bursting.
Right. Well, there was a handful. I mean, Rich Baker, who is no longer with us in the committee, I'm serving on the Financial Services Committee. There was about a handful of us who were raising these issues. I've been there for 5 or 6 years now, since day one, because I said it is an untenable position for these companies to be in. You really should not have them the way they're structured right now. So a few of us are saying this, but I'll say this. It's not a partisan issue. Both Republicans and Democrats were out there cheerleading for these organizations,
for the
GSEs. From
I'm glad to finally hear somebody admit that.
Yeah, and one of the reasons is that GSEs have one of the largest lobbying groups in Washington. The amount of money that they contribute to both Republicans and Democrats over the years has been phenomenal. They link up with other organizations in D.C., and anytime anyone tried to say, let's rein them in, it was silence.
I can tell you.
You also have to remember that, you know, during a significant period of growth for these GSEs, they had a 3-year accounting scandal where everybody was just trying to sort out the bodies and figure out what was going on.
Great point, because here's the sad irony. Sorry to jump in on you. In 2004, go back and read the transcripts. Congress, you know, Frank Raines, the former CEO of Fannie Mae, being paraded in front of Congress. They're too big. They're too powerful. We need to make them smaller. Then, of course, earlier this year, late last year, let's make them bigger. They're the answer to all of our problems.
Well, I think that they were grasping for answers at this point. You know, I think they had to get the accounting scandals figured out first. They need to find out where exactly these firms stood, because what is an accounting scandal? It's a measure of how these entities were really doing.
At the end of the day, it's not matching up assets and liabilities. Listen, we got to go, but I got to ask you one quick question, Representative Garrett. Sure. Would you support nationalizing these companies or breaking them up?
The latter rather than the former. We had one opportunity, as David made a point a few years ago, when we should have done something then. we can't pass this other opportunity right now to take some action. Breaking them up would be the way to go.
All right, Scott Garrett in New Jersey, David Widener, I think we're going to see you again.
Absolutely.
David, thank you very much. All right.